This is the 21st season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. So I had not ever gotten, let's start this show over again. I don't get sick very often. I got the C word in whatever 2021. It was fine. I haven't had like what I would call the straight up flu, where I've tested negative for everything. It's legitimately the flu. I got the flu. So Frank Scalish ran me into the ground basically between the shows and the fishing. I guess with the weather outside, I was exhausted. He left, thankfully. And then the next day I wake up Wednesday and I don't feel great. If you notice, he didn't have a show. And then I was supposed to go down to Fort Worth and do some work there for St. Jude in the upcoming classic. And I ended up at Court's apartment, and I moved about a total of 15 feet over the next 5 days with 103-degree fever. So drove home this morning. Had to do a show, though, because one of the things I was doing while I was laying there was I was watching the first MLF Bass Pro Tour event of the 2025 season, which was won in last second fashion, or hold off fashion, however you want to say it, by Justin Cooper. He had 85.5 on 34 fish on the final day. Colby Miller, who's been on BTL before, really good dude, really like Colby as well. 77.4 came up just short. Jacob Wall, Alton Jones Jr., Jacob Wheeler, Jake Lawrence, Drew Gill, Zach Burge, Nick LeBrun, and Justin Lucas rounding out the top 10. Now, this was at Lake Conroe, and it was the introduction of the brand new, never before seen turbo period, power period, whatever you want to call it, where they had only one period where they allowed to use their forward-facing sonar. So out of the entire event, only a third of the time could they use the scope. And then they had to determine before that, which it turns out 90% of them chose period number one. Mark Davis went OG, made it look really good on one day by refusing to use it at all. I think Rojas went a day like that. I think maybe Bobby Lane went a day like that. 90% of the other guys used it in the first period. And I'm just named off that top 10 to you. To me, I thought it was very interesting because, like, there were a lot of fish that were caught on traps. There were a lot of fish that were caught on lipless baits and stuff. But to me, I don't know what I want to get one of the guys. So coming into it, he was the Bass Zone's number one live scope angler. It was a unanimous decision. It was Drew Gill when we did that show, one of the cool shows that we did last year. And a lot of people were saying that Drew Gill was going to really struggle in this. Heck, the kid has never even fished without using forward-facing sonar before. How is he going to catch a bass? Drew was on the show. He's been very well-spoken and outspoken about it, but he seemed confident in it, and he ended up finishing 7th in this event. He also caught an 8-pounder, which was on a rattle trap when he did not have the forward-facing sonar power period going on. So I told Drew, I said, I'm sick. I said, I need someone who's relevant and can talk a lot. I said, and that's you. And he's relevant because he just came off of 7th place. I want to get his take on everything that's going on. He is also like 23 years old, 22 years old. So he's fishing like 93 tournaments this year. So we have him just on audio. Hopefully you've heard that intro, Drew.
I have, man. And dude, I'm jacked to get the first event behind me. You know, all of us had a lot of question marks, and that was the whole conversation this week leading up to the tournament. It was not, what are you on? You know, obviously we talked weights and what we thought it would take or something like that, but there was always a caveat behind it, which was, but I have no idea. I have no idea what it's going to take. we really don't know, like, I don't know when to use it. I don't know how to use it. Do I go try to fish for the fish that are on the bank better than other people with it? Or do I just go out and fish for minnow fish? Do I wait for later in the day? Because the first 2 days we had some inclement weather early that kind of tapered off toward the end of the day. And so, it was like the dilemma of when do I use it and in what period and how do I use it were the two big dilemmas. And the other thing is, like, logistically speaking, when you only have 2.5 hours to use scope, you want to know where do I start with it? Where cuts down my maximum amount of driving time to start in XYZ place? And so there were just a lot of question marks. And to go into it and, like, figure out, like, I felt like I was going to get a taste of how this was going to work in the first tournament. I'm going to be honest, man. I think we got the whole meal of how this is going to work in the first tournament. Like, we saw that the majority of the field is going to try and be the first one to the table, at least in this one, because in every tournament that's going to get community hole oriented, like this one was, I mean, the entire top 10 was in Caney Creek at some point in the day. With such a community hole oriented tournament, everyone kind of felt the pressure to go out and catch them fast. Because the other thing was local pressure would come out, and people were coming out fishing on the weekends, whatever. And so they start getting out there and fishing. So that's even more boats out there trolling around on them. And so, in this tournament, that question was answered. I think the first period, anytime you're in a community hole tournament, will be the universal power period for most of the field. The other thing that we learned in this one is, honestly, the 2.5 hours that we're allowed to use scope is more of a hindrance for guys that have been using it in every tournament, but aren't quite as what I would say is specific or precise with it as some others. Yeah, because what happened is we kind of found out what guys use it a lot or all day in a normal event, but it takes a while for their day to kind of simmer. They got to heat it up and bring it to a boil on it. That takes time. And we found out what guys can go out there and know exactly what they're on and go straight to it and absolutely bash their heads in because they have the bait dialed, the area dialed, and the specific zone of the area that they need to start on dialed. And I was fortunate enough to get out there and jump to a 50-plus pound start twice this week in the first period just by landing square on top of them. But, dude, it's hard. Like, it is – there's so many decisions to make. And like, I traveled with Matt Becker. Becker had some boat issues on day one. And due to those boat issues, he was only able to fish one place. And it just didn't go his way. And if the scope period doesn't go your way, especially in a wintertime event like Conroe, you will not make the knockout round. Like, you are going to severely, severely struggle in a tournament like that to make the knockout round if the scope period doesn't go your way.
When I had it on and turned it on in the morning, Drew, I literally, through the haze and grog of the fever, thought to myself, oh my gosh, we're witnessing a massacre here. And it was, you and Jake Lawrence and AJ Jr. And Jacob Wheel. I mean, the guys who are top 10 of this stuff in the world. And it had never even in all the discussions I'd had with it on the show and with people and with other anglers, it had never even crossed my mind that minimizing the amount with forward facing would actually benefit those who are better with it.
I'm going to be honest, dude. After fishing one tournament with it, don't get me wrong, I love using scope all day and I love catching bass on it. And like, if I could have it any other way, if I could just go catch them all day on it, I would. But that being said, I kind of have taken a step back on that a little bit because I've realized it exponentially values being freaking dialed.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are dialed, like you got your T's crossed and your I's dotted before the tournament starts, you're going to put an impassable barrier between you and most of the field because you're going to get out to such a massive lead in that 2.5 hours that they can't, if they don't have it all day, they can't nickel and dime their way back in it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I looked at it almost like morel hunting. So like Sorry, I've gone morel hunting a couple times. You ever done that, Drew? Do you know what morel hunting is?
Yeah. Yep. Mushrooms.
For the mushrooms. So like I got a
Yep.
buddy who's like got all this property and all he does is mushroom. He'll walk around and he'll be like, there's one, there's two, there's one, there's three. And in the meantime, I found like one. If you give me like an hour, I'm like over there, like, okay, like this is like the right area. Like I know what I'm looking for. And then I find one and I'm like, hell yeah.
Yep.
Well, dude, you know, if our goal is to find, you know, whatever, 10 big morels, like I'm going to find 10 in 8 hours, dude. Like I'm just not, he's going to find, if you just have an hour to hunt for him, he's going to smoke me. It's the same thing with the forward faces. So like, I mean, it's just you just witness the trained, and I wonder if this was a one-off, or do you think this is going to be pretty common throughout the year where you're going to see everyone pick period one, and you're going to see the guys go out and just snipe. And then there'll be some fisheries where the final two periods, the non-scope is obviously more productive on some lakes and obviously less productive on others. Like, is this a foreshadowing of the year?
Yeah. So, sorry. Jeez. I think the first period thing is going to be an undertone. Like, I think that's going to be something that's going to be consistent. Majority of the field, I think, in every tournament will use it in the first period. I don't know that it will be as drastic as it was in this one, because after the first day, everyone noticed the community hole aspect of that. This is unfishable after about the midpoint of the day in terms of what you can do with it compared to the first period. The other thing is the rest of the year, you know, obviously we started on a wintertime tournament. But that being said, it was a wintertime tournament with hydrilla. You know, I was very vocal about my feelings about hydrilla on live. Hydrilla and me we're not homies, haven't been. I'm hoping that we can change that, but at the moment, still not best buds. You know, I'm gonna have to catch a lot of 8-pounders to change that opinion. But hydrilla does make it where you can catch bass off the bank that aren't that deep, just winding around. And so I think that made this tournament go from, like, it would have been abysmal if there was no grass. Like, the rest of the lake was very sucky. But it made it where it's kind of mediocre. I'd say that one's going to be kind of middle of the road for the amount of catching that goes on during the non-scope periods. I think Murray, Gville, Smith Mountain, obviously the Potomac and Sag will be on the upper end of the catching without scope. I think that Chickamauga and Kentucky Lake and the Harris chain are going to be high contenders for some mediocre bassin when you're not using scope. And so going into it, like, I feel like we got a good taste of like what suck in medium kind of looks like, because you fish anywhere else and like figured out that sucked. And, you know, you fish in Caney and you just kind of had to get familiar with your zones and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Anyways, I think that schism, like we learned a couple things in this tournament that I think are going to be consistent undertones to the season. The first period scope, the separation between your master users of live scope, forward facing sonar, underwater eyes, whatever you want to call them, and your, you know, everyday guys, not every day, because obviously none of our anglers are everyday, but our guys that just go out and use it as a supplement and don't use it as a weapon. It's going to show that, which I, you know, as a guy that's taking the time to really deep dive into what makes bass tick and what all their little movements mean, it makes me excited, because it's really showcasing, okay, you know, this isn't like, you know, everyone's trope about live scope. Oh, just put live scope on and go throw at them. We've got some of the best anglers in the world that went out there and fished around us in that crowd using scope that had a genuine struggle this week, because they're great anglers, and they're going out there and they're just trying to do what a lot of us have done for years, which is just get out there, kind of get your feet wet and start working yourself into a rhythm, rather than hitting that first, you know, it came to the point so ridiculously in the last 2 days that I was like, not only am I going to start on the best area, I will literally find one in the last 2 minutes before line's in, and I will follow that joker to where I make sure my very first cast is going to be a scoreable. Like, it's that scope period all year is going to be pandemonium. And I think this might be bold, but I think the schism between your guys that are really, really good at looking at them and the guys that aren't is going to grow over the year, because minnow fishing is the most possibly the most understandable form of like suspended bass fishing around bait. Super understandable. They tend to bite really well, and you've got a lot of opportunities around. When we go to Harris Chain, or we go to Gunnersville in April when they're up shallow, or we go to Chickamauga, or we go to even the Potomac specifically, where you're going to have to be really freaking dialed to even catch them on scope at all.
Mhm.
Those tournaments are honestly, I think the schism's going to widen. Like, I think you're literally going to be able to do some things with scope that make it where you physically don't have to catch a bass the rest of the qualifying round to make the knockout round. And the beauty of that is what I've always loved about this format is all about buying yourself practice time in the tournament. So my practice approach the rest of the year probably is going to be dial the power period bite to the nth degree the entire practice, and trust myself enough when I'm on it to buy myself the practice time for the bank in the tournament, to where I spend my full 2 days of practice looking for power period. Then I smoke them going right into the first day, buy myself those 2 periods without it to go practice for bankfish, and then do the same thing the second qualifying day, 2 more periods of practice for bankfish. And I've got 4 periods, I've got 10 hours of bank fishing practice under me by the time I hit the knockout round. So now I've got power period fish dialed and 10 hours of practice on the bank to supplement. And so that's kind of how I did it this week. And, it took me a while to get cooking, but by the end of the tournament, I got the bait right and I got the area right. And I ended up having a very solid last period of the event. I had 25 pounds scope in the afternoon yesterday, and it felt good. And I think it gave me an indication as to what I'm going to approach it like the rest of the year.
Playing the video of you with your, what was that, an 8-pounder?
Yeah. With or without the breathing?
No audio.
Good.
No audio. That was on a trap though. So what was the is that the biggest bass you've ever caught just not looking at one?
No, it's the third biggest I've ever caught not looking at it. So biggest one I've ever caught, actually the biggest one I've ever caught was out without looking at it. It was a 985, and I was fishing with my buddy Cole Breeden. We were fishing after the Invitational in Okeechobee. He threw a swim jig through the reeds, shakes it, big head comes up and rolls on it, doesn't get it. So I pitch my worm up there, and I'm just dragging the swim worm, tonk, whack, and I thought I had my 10-pounder, almost didn't. And then I had an 8.5 that I caught at home on a jig on a culvert pipe. But that is the third biggest one I've ever caught on scope. It's the biggest one I've ever caught in a tournament. Scope, no scope, biggest one I've ever caught in a tournament.
So it also sounds like after one event, and I mean, dude, you were the case study in this because I mean, you made the top level of the sport. When you started fishing, this was a tool, right? Forward facing was a tool. So there's not like you had tournament fish for decades without it.
Yep.
But I'm also hearing you say that you're even more dedicated to it now after the first event and dialing it in for the 1/3 or 33% of the time you'll be able to use it, instead of focusing on the 66% of the time. And you think that you can make Angler of the Years and Red Crest and win events primarily riding the 33.3% of the time.
I mean, it, dude. The ability to see changes your life in dramatic ways. I don't wake up in any morning and wrap the blindfold around my eyes and say, let's do this thing. We're going to navigate the world by touching things and feeling things and hearing things. And so when you open your eyes, it's amazing how much more efficient you are and how much effective you are. One scope period, 2.5 hours of it is worth 10 hours, 12 hours of not using it if you do it right.
And I was seeing on the instant feedback, like 80%, over 80% of the fish weighed in were caught in the scope periods.
Yep. And I'm going to take the weapon that I have curated, and I was talking about this with my competitors yesterday, because all of us did scope to get there. You aren't going to make a championship round without doing your scope period right in the knockout round, period, end of the story. But I was talking with him, and I was like, dude, the amount of scary that we're all going to be while using scope at the end of the year is going to be ridiculous, because we realize in this tournament Nobody's been going at 100% on scope ever.
Yeah.
Now that we're fishing with a purpose and fishing like a gosh dang maniac for 2.5 hours, like just laser focus, it is ridiculous the pace that was kept at Conroe. I mean, the weights on average were better than Toledo Bend. Better than Toledo Bend is Conroe. We only had scope for 2.5 hours on Conroe,
Yeah.
and it was better than Toledo. What in the world? And like I feel like that right there is an indication that, like, seriously, the guys that have honed this weapon, that is their eyeballs and their brain and the connection between the two, the guys that have honed it to the maximum potential are going to benefit more from this change in, I think, overall, in terms of your ability to strategize and set up a tournament in a way that you can, that if you have it, prepared, ready to go for the first day, if you're ready to go for the first day, I think you can strategize a way to get to that championship round better now than ever. And I think it's a really unique perspective on it. And incredible. Conroe had great crowds. I mean, we had, a couple hundred people there both days. The energy was great. Seems like, I've looked back and looked at some of the comments, and obviously the people on the internet want to have something to complain about a lot, but I think there's a lot of good feedback on this tournament. I wasn't sure how it was going to go going into it. I had my concerns, and if the general feel of tournament staff and anglers was very positive at this event. Everybody was I've ever seen them, and so to see that is something that I definitely was happy about. And if it can stay this way the rest of the year, man, I'm gonna feel like this year's gonna be a win. So
it also looked like there was a pretty good crowd there.
There was a very, very good crowd. We had for sure probably 250 to 350 there yesterday to see Justin win. So a few hundred people. It was a very solid crowd for that. We had our takeout at the outlets at Conroe. It's a strip mall in Conroe that's mostly vacated. So it's got a lot of parking space.
You're at a vacant strip mall?
We were at a vacant strip mall. Dude, it's kind of dystopian when we first got there, because before the final 2 days, you're just at a strip mall that has all these
don't make
signs
me
that
laugh.
used to be on the building that aren't there anymore.
Too now.
And,
oh my gosh.
And I'm looking around and I'm like, this would be a delightful place for like a paintball arena or something just absolutely absurd. Like this and of course there's an escape room built into it now. Like perfect kind of place for something like that, of just putting stuff up. It's hilarious.
I'm going to ask you about this. I have a vested interest in it. I'm very jealous. I did see in a lot of the photos you had your power brakes deployed and we're using them. I'm very jealous that we are, for no logical reason, not allowed to use them in the Bassmaster Opens this year. Other than that, there's not a company that makes a product that is big enough that makes a difference. Long story short, we've had Chad on from Power Brakes. You know him well too.
Yep.
The way you described scoping at 100%, my brain started thinking, my God, the Power Brakes. Did you notice any more efficiency with them?
100%, dude. It made it where, you got to think about it this way too, is like, in the turbo period, if you're going to generate a bite, that bite might take you 40 or 45 minutes to generate when you don't have scope. In the scope period, you can generate a bite once every 10 minutes if you're on. So if I can get 2 more bites, fishing because of my brakes, because I was able to stop myself effectively early and give myself a good opportunity at a longer cast rather than just pitching off the side of the boat and going, I hope I hit him. I'm confident on day 1, I caught 3 more that I wouldn't have caught without it. Day 2, I caught 1. Knockout round, I caught at least 4 more that I wouldn't have caught without it. Like, it got me 8 extra scoreable bass. It was taking me an average of, if you average across the tournament, it took me an average of 45 minutes to generate a bite without scope. So across that 45 minutes, 45 minutes to generate a bite without scope. 8 bites that I wouldn't have gotten in the scope period that I would have had to generate without it would have taken me an additional, 360 minutes, so 6 hours. I would have had to have an additional 6 hours of fishing without scope to generate enough bites to make up for the 8 bites that my power breaks got me. That, dude, in our format, those power breaks are an absolute essential tool, I think, for fishing for suspended fish, because if you bypass a single bite, you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball for the rest of the day. You cannot pass up anything. Hello?
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Okay, we're back. You should be able to hear me now. That was strictly a me not on top of my game move right there. Can we hear Drew too?
You hear me?
What's up, dude?
Yeah,
Right,
I
sorry
thought
about that.
I was guaranteeing it was me, so I kept logging out, trying to get back in the StreamYard and stuff.
No, it was all me, and then I added 2 of you in somehow, and it was a disaster. But we're back good. Anyway, I want to wrap things up. I appreciate the time here. It's been a very insightful look into it. You're headed to Yoga event.
Yep, I'm headed to the Toyota at Pickwick. It starts Wednesday, so I'm gonna have a day to get prepared. Never been to Pickwick this time of year, but I'm excited. I'm hoping to get out there and get after him. I mean, realistically, it's a winter tournament on Pickwick, so there's 3 baits that'll work, and I'm gonna have all 3 on the deck the whole time.
What was your MOC at this past event? Your minnow of choice.
So my minnow of choice at this past event, just being objective. This was not a sponsor bait. I was throwing the Raid Fish Roller. At this one. So basically I was getting some bites close to the boat. It's a really good bait that flips on its side quite a bit. And it's one that I was throwing at this one. It was definitely a good option. I know some guys, Alton was throwing a 5. I know Jake was throwing a 5 a little bit. Like there were some heftier minnows getting thrown. But you and I both know that we've had this conversation a lot. I'm a little bit timid about the bigger minnows. I've not quite dipped my toe in it a lot yet. And you know what, Panger? The minnow's still, a year and 10 months from peaking now? So
that's according to Jacob Wheeler.
Hey, so it's not at its very best yet, Whenever there's 30 boats out there in circle fishing, it's not at its best. So it's gonna only get better.
How many are in your arsenal? You just a number wise, how many different brands, and if you had to just say brands and sizes, Do you carry 10, 20, 30 different?
I carry 3 different sizes, 3 or
Okay.
4 different
There you
sizes,
go.
and then I carry 1, 2, 3, 4 brands.
Keep it
And
simple.
I'm totally fine with naming those, the brands at least. So I carry our big black jerk minnow. It's my minnow of choice when we're fishing fast. If I'm fishing really snappy and quick, it's got a good narrow flash, like it stays pretty tight, and it doesn't resist my reeling a lot, so I can be very quick with it. And then I carry Raid, I carry Fish Arrow, and I carry Depths, and those are the brands that I keep in my boat.
What do you say? A man of culture.
I try my best, dude. I mean, when it comes to the minnow game, I think it's the game that people are getting the most advanced at, the fastest in terms of like their specificity with rods, with tackle, with actual baits, and so staying on top of it's pretty important, especially when you are on the Major League Fishing Bass Pro Tour and you only have 2.5 hours to do your damage. So it's important
That's
to
fair.
be on top of it. And I think I will say this. Regardless of anything I've said about the format or rules changes, I know that I will come out of this year better at bass fishing than I was at the beginning, and
that's
that
the
is
point.
something I'm looking forward to, man. I've really enjoyed this first tournament. If all of them can go this way the rest of the year, I think it's going to be a good year for us. So I'm really looking forward to that. That 8-2 was a great fish to start me for heavy hitters. And that 7th place finish is a great start towards the first 3 tournaments worth of points that'll qualify me for, either I think it's the Patriot Cup or the Challenge Cup. Should be the first 2 cups, I believe. So it's a good start toward heavy hitters. I can't believe, it only took a couple months for the season to get here, and now we're 1 tournament down, dude. I mean, we got 6 more to go, and then the fall
There
tournament.
wasn't really an off season though with that team series deal because he went and won that in Florida and stuff. So it was just kind of a seamless transition. So anyway, I'm gonna let you go. I greatly appreciate it. Congratulations on a top 10 finish and giving a little bit of insight.
I appreciate it, dude. Always a good day when you get to be on BTL.
All right, see you, Drew. That is the one and only Drew Gill. We have another guest, a surprise guest. So we've had him on the show before, and I talk a lot about Omnia fishing. They've been a part of BTL for a while, but I was chatting with Ricky Harris from Omnia, and I was like, wait a second, you can stack this stuff and you can do this. We've got all sorts of discount codes and stuff. So I was going to try to explain it. I'm horrible at explaining that. So we'll just bring Ricky in right now and explain it so that way I can't get it wrong. What's up, Ricky?
What's up, Matt? I appreciate you.
I'm trying to survive the day, man. It was I know last time I talked with you, we talked about our college days. I haven't had the flu since my college days, and it has thrown me for a loop, so to speak.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's funny you mentioned that. I had the flu a couple times in college myself, but yeah, it's I feel like I get down for longer than I used to back then.
Yeah,
I feel like I could take the flu or something else and be okay in a few days, and it's
knocked me down and it has kept me down. So hopefully I'll be dialed in. Like I said, I took all of the important tests and was negative for any of those. So it is flu. So we shall see. But I wanted to get you on. I was talking. One of the things I called, I said, one of my New Year's resolutions was to do better at codes, whether it was a discount code or any type of code. All the sponsors give different codes, right? And Omnia has codes, and I suck at giving out the codes. So we've got like 2 codes that you can use in combination plus a $50 gift card until they tell us to stop. Is that what we're going with today, Ricky?
Yeah. So essentially,
okay.
kind of break down there. There's essentially 2 codes. There's one that if you are already a pro member, then this one won't be applicable to you. But if you don't have pro yet, you haven't had a chance to check it out, then if you use the code BTL Pro when you go to omniafishing.com/pro and go to purchase your membership and use the code BTL Pro, you'll be able to get a $50 gift card put right into your account. It's not anything. Once that transaction goes through, you'll see that in an email shortly afterwards. So that's for getting the Pro itself. Now, if you already have Pro, what you can do is we have a code set up that's BTL10, which is a 10% discount code. And if you're a Pro member, you can actually use that BTL10 in conjunction with your benefits of your Pro membership. So, with your Pro membership, you get 10% cash back on your purchases. And in addition to that, you get free shipping with no minimums. So you can use that in conjunction together. So if you already have Pro, then you can use that code. Or if you don't have a Pro membership, just want to use the discount code, then you're still eligible to use that as well. So we've kind of got the best of both worlds for everybody there. We really love to get a lot of feedback on our Pro membership and all the different features and technologies. There's a lot of stuff we have that's totally unique to the industry, as far as our Navionics cartography in the app and, several additional map layers that just aren't available anywhere else. So like I said, there's, I could go on and on about Pro for a while here, but no, that's essentially we have two different codes that any of the audience can use. So if you already have Pro, you can use that BTL10 discount code in conjunction with that. And if you don't have Pro yet, now's the perfect opportunity. As I said, they won't let me give away a $50 gift card forever, guys. So, take advantage of it while you can, for sure.
And it's what, $49?
Yeah, it's $49.95 for the year.
Oh, so you're actually making 5 cents if you're going to spend $50 on tackle. Plus, then you get 10% cash back and the free shipping, and then on top of that, you add the BTL 10.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're good to go.
You think about it, just at a regular price. I mean, if you spend $500 throughout the course of an entire season on fishing tackle, which is not very difficult to do, then you can essentially just make your money back on your subscription right there if you were to buy it full price. Yep. So it's a really good deal just for the commerce benefits alone. That's not even getting into.
And then it's BTL Pro when you sign up for the Pro.
Yeah, to get the $50 gift card.
To get the $50 gift card.
Yeah.
All that information is, believe it or not, in the description of the show today. So,
but yeah, essentially that's how those two codes are working for right now. And feel free if there's anybody that.
There's a bunch of people that want to know, what if they already have it? Can they re-up? Can they if they buy, how does that work? If they wanted to buy it for another year, do they get the card and stuff? Is that all stuff that they can just email you on a case by case basis?
Yeah, if they want to reach out to me, email that's perfectly fine. So we don't have the capability currently at the moment for them to be able to renew it if it's already active. But there's definitely something that we can do there. And one of the things I wanted to mention too is that's one of the reasons that it's so important to sign up for our email newsletter, because we have deals all throughout the year that constantly funnel through. So if they're signed up for our email newsletter, then they stay on top of that. And that's the thing I always encourage everyone that's a Pro member to. As it's getting time for your subscription to be ready to be renewed, keep up to date with the promotions and things that we've got going on. And there may be, there may be some deals and things to take advantage of. And most of the time there is, some kind of deal that you can take advantage of with Pro. So, but yeah, we don't have anything that right at the moment, but we absolutely love to have women reach out if they have that particular, they're in that particular situation.
I knew you'd be able to explain that way better than I would. I think that's all I got. You got anything else?
Yeah, man, the only thing I wanted to touch on is just a new update that we've made on the site. I know some of you guys may have already seen it, but our AI summaries that we have on our product pages, it's something that I was really excited about when we launched that. Just kind of giving you an example. So if you search for a Strike King Rage Craw on the site, you'll be able to see it's essentially an AI summary of all the fishing reports that we have for that particular product. And you're able to even drill it down further, as there's different categories for each one. And there'll be, summaries about the color and size, and you'll be able to look at, how that varies throughout different regions in the country. And there's a lot of really, really useful information there. And it's essentially what we've done is took all of that data from those fishing reports and made it, a very easily digestible, quick, short paragraph that, it really takes away from what guys were having to do before, is going through all of those reports that feature that product and reading each one individually. And this basically just brings you a summary of all that stuff that's important to, essentially help you save a tremendous amount of time. You can go from product page to product page and get a ton of really valuable information about the product itself and how it's applied. There's a lot of, subsequent information that you can see there that's really, really cool now. So I encourage anyone to check that out that has not got to yet.
Very cool. Yeah, that's good stuff. All right, Ricky, I appreciate it. Thank you. Make sure to, if you already are a pro member, use that BTL 10. That was something that I really appreciate. You're able to get going to give an addition to those who are already pro members. And if you're not, we don't know how long that'll last. Literally, we're just doing it until someone says stop with the $50 gift card on the.
Get it while it's hot. For sure.
It's the ask for forgiveness instead of permission first. But hey, get in on it while you can using the capital BTL Pro at Omnia Fishing/Pro. Thanks, Ricky.
That's it. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
All right, see ya. All right, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, Lord willing, we'll wrap things up. It's BTL on a Monday. We'll be back after this.
This is Gamakatsu's new Nano Alpha line of hooks. If it looks familiar, that's because they are. It's the same shapes and sizes in the round bend and the EWG and in the new Horizon head that you know and love from Gamakatsu, but there are a couple new features with this Nano Alpha, which is this little green label that you see on the packaging. First off, 2 times faster hook penetration. That's because of the Nano Alpha smooth coating on it, and also it is 4 times more corrosion resistant. Check it out, Nano Alpha.
I've been using Sunline Shooter for the majority of my career. Millions of dollars made, lots of bass caught, and the gnarly, gnarly stuff. If you need a abrasion resistant, tough fishing line for the really, really mean stuff, Sunline Shooter is for you.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top on Strike King.
Gear that just plain works. Cast after cast after cast. AFTCO. Any fish, any water.
Your early morning mentality is your every hour mentality. All gas, no brakes. Focus, purpose, power. Destined for the water, but confident everywhere else. A calming buzz before the storm, truth of nature itself. You can't catch lightning in a bottle. There's a limit out there, but it's not with your gear. Unrelenting power delivery. Unparalleled weight savings. Keeping you on the water, whether you run a 9.9 or outscoping your best 5. In this rare air, there's power in the silence. It's a mindset, thinking only of the things that matter and freeing your mind from the things that you trust.
Beatdown is efficient.
Rock solid. 100% American made.
This thing is super tough. I mean, this thing is not going anywhere.
I've ran the Beatdown double stack from Florida all the way up to New York. And the one thing that I know is when I get to my fishing destination, I never have to worry about issues with my graph mount.
Your options are endless with these mounts, but they're steady, they're solid. These are the most reliable mounts on the market, and you can't go wrong with the Beatdown.
When you're ready to hit the water, Denali Fishing has you covered. Regardless of your skill level, from beginner all the way up to tournament pro, Denali has rods, reels, and tungsten to get the job done. Check them out at denalifishing.com.
All right, wrapping things up here on a Monday. I want to give a special shout out to both Ricky from Omnia for jumping on, and Drew Gill. I'd be curious as to your guys' thoughts if you had a chance to watch the BPT, how that power period worked or the turbo period. More interested in watching it, less interested. It did turn out. I mean, it came down to a trap slinging deal at the end. I mean, where Colby almost got Justin Cooper on that, but they're able to hold off. There's Jacob Wall. I really enjoyed listening to him. I know he fishes Gunnersville a lot in grass. I enjoyed listening to him talk about, how he was fishing that bladed jig and working it through the grass and the different types of grass and sweet spots on sweet spots. There's a lot of conversation that we hadn't heard in a number of years at that level of tournament fishing, especially when there was a forward facing sonar bite going. I also liked watching the guys absolutely go ham first thing in the morning, and the accuracy and the intensity with which a guy like a Drew Gill or Jacob Wheeler or an AJ Jr., Lucas, or those guys go after those fish too. Is absolutely insane. So I'm going to go find some more cough drops, probably the couch. Thanks for sticking with us. We're back for another week of BTLs. We'll figure something out for tomorrow. Other than that, we'll talk to everybody then. Later.